So that brings us to 2.1 changes to the agenda. I do have several changes to this agenda. One would be deleted item 3.2, recognition of the 2023 secondary K-12 Assistant Principal of the Year, and deleted item 3.4, recognition of the 2023 secondary K-12 Principal of the Year. Those would be Victoria Hurley and John Spolsky. I have added 7.17 CRRSA Act 2021 Open Door Grant for the 2022-2023 school year. Added item 7.18 appropriation of District 3 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Baker School. And deleted item 8.10 employee termination. So that brings us to recognition, Section 3, 3.1, recognition of the 2023 Elementary Assistant Principal of the Year, Mandy Lopez. 3.2 was deleted, as we said. 3.3, recognition of the 2023 Elementary Principal of the Year, Donna Kelly. 3.4 was deleted, as we said. 3.5, proclamation in support of National Mentoring Month presented by Ms. Ivanchik. Section 4, administrative personnel appointments. We have none for tonight. 5, we don't know yet, the public comment for blue cards. Those would be addressing agenda items. Section 6, committee and staff reports for the workshop only. 6.1, out-of-county travel paid for December 2022, presented by Ms. Perry. 6.2, in-county travel paid for December 2022, presented by Julie Perry. 6.3, site planning and selection report for new school construction in Crestview, presented by Dr. Bill Smith, Program Director for Facilities Planning. I think we have a presentation coming.
Good morning.
Morning.
On your agenda today, you have a proposed site in the Crestview area for possibly 2 new schools. I want to go through the process that we went through, our due diligence that we went through in acquiring and coming up with the sites that we have today. Basically, we're talking about an 80-acre site in Crestview. The site is located on the western new bypass going around the west side of Crestview, the city of Crestview. It's basically between the interstate and Highway 90. It's 80 acres in size. It's almost a half a mile of road frontage on the new bypass. It's about 2,400 something feet on the bypass on a long straightaway, and it's 196 feet in elevation. That's a really important thing in the area of coming up with a new school site. This is the boundary survey of the property that's proposed on your agenda. There's a couple of things about it. You'll see a little later in the presentation why it has the unusual shape that it does, but it's an attempt to try to find a flat spot to put a school, and it's hard to find a 80-acre flat spot. When site planning for a new school, you've got to go through a couple of different gyrations of requirements. Before acquiring property, you need to contact your local agencies, your counties, your cities, and make sure that what you're planning on doing is in line with what their plans are and their long-range goals. And it must be adequate size and adequate to serve the use of the school, of what the school is going to be used for. The biggest thing when you start siting a school is to get it in a spot that's going to make it very easy for you to redraw and redo your school boundaries, school zones boundaries. So you don't want them all wadded up in one spot. The map you see in front of you, the green dots are the existing schools that we have in the Crestview area. Of course, the big red star is the location of the new school site. The yellow road to the south is the interstate. The yellow road to the north is to the top of the page is Highway 90. The next part of trying to select a site is there are things that you can't do. You can't place a school site next to a railroad right-of-way. You can't be under a flight approach of an airport. You can't have, and it's a real unusual thing in the statute, and I called DOE about this, you cannot have a through highway. Now, the definition of a through highway, according to DOE, is a highway that goes through the middle of the school site. So we were debating about that. How could you have a school and not have a nice road beside it? But that's the way they define it. The second thing is, another real important thing is that you don't want it close to something that would create a noise or a smell or a hazard for placing a school in that location. This is back to the original map we had a few minutes ago, a little closer in. The red line toward the top of above the star represents the railroad that runs through Crestview, which we needed to stay away from. The black circle down kind of at about 5 o'clock from the red star is the Crestview sewer plant, which we wanted to stay away from. To the left, the black line is the Yellow River, which represents a very, very large floodplain, which we needed to stay away from. Also, there is no sewer in Okaloosa County west or to the left of the black line, which is the river. So we needed to stay on the east side of the river so we could still get water and sewer. We've had a number of meetings with both the county and the city. For this particular site, you'll be getting your water, your fire protection water, and your potable water, and your sewer from the city of Crestview, even though we are not in the city limits at this time, but that's their service area. They don't feel like there will be a problem at all getting those utilities to the school by the time we're ready to start construction of the school, or at least have the school finished. But we have met with them numerous times, one in a joint meeting with both Growth Management Department, the city's Public Works Department, and the county's Public Works Department, and the County Road Department. One of the issues that we've had a lot of discussion about is that road will be finished simultaneously with the school. So we're working with the county to be able to get access on that road through the contractor that's building that site, building that road during the same time we're building the school. This is the drawing I was talking about earlier. The topographical survey, lines that are really, really close together are bad. Lines that are far apart are good. Which lines that are far apart means the property's flat. So the owner let us draw the line on getting as much flat property as we could possibly get inside the 80 acres. This is another drawing, another aerial photograph showing the new road right of way as the county's building the road. Same thing, just a little bit further out. And if you have any questions, that's the process we went through to get where we are today.
So, Dr. Smith, Madam Chair, if I may ask, Dr. Smith, you said it's not within the city limits, but I think there is some things that the city is planning on doing there, and one of them is actually they have plans to put a fire department substation on that particular bypass. Am I correct?
That is correct, and we are also talking about, the city has proposed a water tank either close to or adjacent to or on the corner of our property that would give us really great water. It would also cut our cost to try to help get water to the site. Potable water is fairly easy to get. Fire protection water is much harder because you have to have a much stronger flow. To give you an example, at Antioch, we had to get potable water from the city of Crestview and fire protection water from the county to get a good enough flow to meet the requirement. If we have a tank right there close to that school, we'll get those two requirements very easily. But yes, you're correct. And also, there's some rumor out there that some of the landowners in that area are considering annexing into the city. And if they do that, we will legally be able to annex into the city too, if that's what the board chooses to do, and that's what we've done in the past. We did that with Antioch, we did it with Davidson. That's been the preferred in the past.
I have a question, please. So this is 80 acres, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
It's a very large site.
Okay, so, and I know we haven't made any decisions on what would actually go there, but just in looking at that size, is it conceivable that that might have more than one school on that site?
That's correct.
Okay,
There's a lot of possibilities on a site that big. That piece of property is twice the size of Choctaw's campus.
that's about 40 acres. And so, yeah, okay, so there's a possibility that I know you kept saying the school, but, and just being picky, it could be more than one school there ultimately that we could look at, so it would allow us more than one structure.
That's
Okay.
correct. When we started the sales tax program, keep in mind that we don't have any additions to our elementary school classroom additions in our Crestview schools or our middle schools. So those two areas are the capacity needs for the new site in Crestview.
Okay, thanks.
And that was done the best way to spend the money. Is a whole lot better to put it on one site than it is to scatter it all over to existing schools.
Mhm.
So
Well, you
two
mentioned-
things.
Excuse me.
No, go ahead, I'll be last.
Well, you mentioned rezoning, so that brings to mind there must be some plans afoot that maybe the superintendent will be bringing forward regarding when we might expect groundbreaking and those kinds of things, Superintendent.
No, absolutely. And I want to start off by saying, I think the board wisely, during the half-cent sales time, we talked about this is a two-prong approach. We need to look at our current buildings, but we also need to be thinking about new school construction. And we talked about during that time, once schools get to approximately 85% capacity, the experts say, in essence, you're full, and you need to start thinking about building new schools. As you know, the vast majority of our schools are well over 85% capacity. So we knew at that time that new school construction was a part of that plan. So we're excited. When you start looking at 80 acres, it gives us the ability to now enact that process. Ms. Vanchek, you're absolutely correct. So the plan, long-range plan, would be 2 schools on that plot of land. We would start with 1. The current plan is a K-8 school on that land. And what that'll do, like Dr. Smith was saying, it'll help alleviate pressure in our elementary schools in the north end, as well as our middle schools at the north end as well. Crestview High School, as you know, we're doing a classroom addition, so that'll help with Crestview High School. So this is a part of a bigger plan that we've been looking at for a number of years. We also are looking at Destin Elementary, the 4-5 center that would go there in the future. That's planning out, as well as looking at the Niceville area as well. But the 80 acres is what's before us as part of a long-range plan.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
You want to say something, Mr. Bryant?
Yes, to go back to Ms. Vanchek on the 2 schools, I believe when Mr. Chambers, we were talking about it, I think the vision is if you go to Shoal River and Riverside, to kind of have it in that particular
Like that
design.
setup.
Yeah.
Ms. Gardner, did you want to say anything? Well, several things stuck out in my mind. Probably Mr. Chambers and Dr. White and Ms. Gardner will agree with me. I've been principal at 3 of our schools, and I never had the luxury of being at less than 85% capacity, maybe at 99% at some points in my career. But so I think this is very well timed, as we said before. All of our schools could certainly use some relief as far as capacity goes. But out of your presentation particularly, I like the fact that our public needs to know that all the steps that were taken by this district have been per state statute. And if you looked at those statutes dealing with facilities planning and building, they're pretty adamant with the must words in there. A district must, a district must. And when you look at those capabilities for what must be in that land and looking at the high area of need in Crestview, there just are not that many plots of land for sale that large that are flat and that are away from all of those things that you must be away from and near to those things that you must be near to that can accommodate the educational needs of the students to be served there. So I think kudos to all the staff that were involved in that process. Thank you.
And Dr. Kelly, if you don't mind, want to do one other thing. Mr. Horton, if you'd come up, and just 2 things just for the board, just so we're all on the same page in terms of when we might expect the new school construction, if the board were to approve that, would be completed. And then also, apologize, didn't address the rezoning. So if you'd explain how we would look at rezoning as well.
And before that, just to say that this impacts everything. Transportation, staff, I mean, it's just, I can't even remember the last time that we built a new school.
Yes, sir. It's been that long that it's
In
really
the
something
90s
we'll all
started,
have
right.
to relearn, but
In the 90s.
In the
it does impact every,
25 years. Right, long
Yep.
time.
every area. So first, speaking to the construction piece, as you know, as board members, pre-GMPs follow everything or lead everything in. So it would be our intent this spring to bring the board a pre-GMP for school construction. That school construction would contain, at a minimum, a new school construction in Crestview and addition to Destin Elementary campus.
Okay.
We would expect to bring both those at the same time at a minimum. And happy to conduct in workshops some in-depth discussion of both of those things. But we'll see in the south end that even though there's not a lot of room for additional growth in terms of land, we only have 2 schools in that area, the Destin Elementary and Destin Middle, so those 2 schools need some relief. As Dr. Kelly would be aware, the enrollment and capacity there is at or exceeding 100% for both of those. And you can see that when you have portables on campus, you're adding capacity there to help address. So timeline-wise, and we've had meetings with Jacobs Titan, our TPM, total program management firm, and talked about construction timelines that allow for start of school 2026. It's about a 3-year process to build a school. We might have discussions about start of school 2025, the 2025-26 school year, potentially for the Destin addition. And those are, so we're looking at 2.5 years out plus, but it is absolutely time to start not just the pre-construction process, but looking at those populations and where zoning would occur. So not as much of a deal in the south end, but in the north end,
Right.
there would be rezoning that would occur 3 years out. And so what we would look at, we are in a new environment now with enrollment, and the way the district has operated under its policy, if a new school opens and we do some rezoning, I think most folks would like an opportunity to go to that new school. We want to make sure we build that population early. I think there'll be a large population to begin with, but there'll be some opportunities if a family was, say, in the 4th grade and it was time to move to the new school for 5th grade, and they had been at that other school through K-4, to create a mechanism where they have an opportunity to stay that last year if they would like to do so. So that's part of controlled open enrollment, and we want to make sure that we get the appropriate population moving, but we want to give the parents an option in situations such as that they can choose to stay for that extra year, and we'll bring that much in advance of the actual school opening.
Okay, so when I heard you were talking about the Jacobs Titan and the total program management and all that, and aren't we already struggling to a certain amount and trying to get things done, because of lack of workers, that kind of thing? So my fear would be, how far along would we be in accomplishing with the sales tax all those projects that we have before going into new construction? Because I would be worried, we don't want to have a problem, we can't get these done because we're over here with the new school. Have any feel for that, please?
That is a great question, Ms. Ivanchek. And so I think the timing is such that you're seeing these multipurpose buildings and now cafeterias beginning to come out of the ground. And so as we work through this pre-GMP process, which does not involve construction working, but it's engineering, design, planning work, we go through that pre-GMP process. That process can take 6 to 8 months. It could take to the end of 2023 for that pre-GMP process to be done. And all the while, construction is still going on. And that's to say, the firm that bids on a new school construction may not be the same firm that's doing the current
Okay.
work. It could be a different firm.
Okay.
But I think the timing is such that a lot of the projects you're seeing happening now will be at their completion stage in terms of Jacobs Titan's portfolio of task orders. And then the new school construction would be able to go unencumbered from that point.
But we would not have hit that 10-year mark on the sales tax revenues.
Correct.
So what happens then? I don't want to get out, I know that's probably a whole nother thing, but
No, it's a great question. So the COP that funded the 19 construction projects in our existing schools, that's using the construction capacity that's in our local area for those classroom additions, cafetoriums. The other projects on those sales tax for for example, roofing projects that we continue to do, is something that can continue on in a parallel path and not really be impacted by a new school construction. The other thing is, we talk about a second phase of internal security with classroom doors moving to Salto. So that's something that's a big ticket item for the sales tax project, but it's not something that's directly would be in competition with a construction firm doing a school construction, if that makes sense.
Right.
And then the other thing is I rely on our partners at Jacobs Titan, and we keep, if you've been on the construction meetings and you hear the reports from Dr. Kelly and also Mr. Bryant, there are probably 30 task orders now, but no one's crying uncle at this point in time. We are excited about seeing work being done in our county, and they are continuing to do it. The hardest part now has been lead time on some things, materials and things like that, but we're doing well in that area for the most part right now.
And just while you were verbalizing that, Mr. Horton, I was thinking in my head how many times I've heard Joel Linder in that construction committee saying, we need to keep these workers busy while they're here, because if we let them leave our county, it will take them a while to come back because they will already have begun on other projects outside of our region. So I love the way that they stagger out, keeping these workers here.
Well, I just think the timing's going to be important in balancing that.
And I think that's a great question. And just remind us on, if we're looking at the 25 school year for the 4-5 center, approximately, the 26 school year for new school in the Crestview area, approximately. Just remind us of the timeline with the COP, because it has to be done, the projects have to be done in a certain amount of time from the start of the COP.
Right. So going back to the current COP that we have in place, we've restructured the payment on that 10-year note, where it's front-loaded. The first 3 years is more of a payment, then it decreases in years 4 through 10. So that gives us more flexibility in our funding models for new construction. But the timeline on any COP issuance, and that would be the case as we move to new school construction. Sales tax funds are earmarked right now for the projects in the schools. So there'd be additional round of borrowing for new school construction, repaid primarily by capital outlay, 1.5 money. When you do issue a COP, the requirement is essentially that the construction on that would be done within 36 months. And so once we issue that COP, then the timeline starts. And based on requirements under the COP program, there's incentives to finish the construction work within 36 months. So that's something that would be done. And I will say that as it relates to the current construction projects, we're doing very well with respect to those in terms of being on our timeline, because again, back when we did this last round with the 19 construction projects, we said they should be substantially done within 36 months. I think we're on pace to do that or better.
One more thing. Have you worked with the county, and especially in the city of Crestview, on the bypass thing? Are we going to have some coordination? Because we'd like to have that pretty well finished, I would think, before.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And so Dr. Smith really is our point person on that, and he meets regularly with the county and the city. And this particular school campus is adjacent to the bypass road going through. And one of the things that he mentioned was the construction of that bypass is going to actually be going on at the same time as there could be school construction happening. And so we work with that entity to make sure that we have right-of-way to get to where we need to be to do the work. And so that's something that Bill Smith stays on top of.
Thank you.
And real quick, if I can piggyback off of her comment there with the city of Crestview and all, Dr. Smith, I know one of my first tasks being on the construction committee was a site visit to this particular piece of property. And, there is a lot of construction going on out there, and a lot of different entities who are involved in the construction of that road. I think what's really exciting about it is the portion where the school is should be completed before the south portion, because you're dealing with the interstate interchange that they're doing. So there's going to be a lot of access points before the bypass is 100% complete, where there'll be a north and south entrance and a north entrance and an east and west entrance getting to that road or getting to the school. So
yes, sir, because as a matter of fact, we were there last week looking at the property, and I could see on the north side of it, you could see some gravel laid down where the rest of it's still
and I think
trucks
they've
moving
already
dirt.
paved sections of it already, so it's going. But you know, I was going to wait till the construction part of my meeting, but I would just, Mr. Chambers, just request that Dr. Smith be able to take my fellow board members out, if they haven't been out there, to see the site and see what we're getting ready to hopefully vote on tonight, so.
I think you all would like it. We were there last week, like Mr. Horton said. They're actually they're in the process of building a bridge out there, which looks pretty amazing, but the land is beautiful. I never realized that all that existed out there.
Well, and I just want to kind of add to Dr. White's comment as I'm looking at Dr. Hill right here. With the trend we have of losing teachers, having a difficult time with hiring, just the trend that we've seen. The Department, Human Resources, has done a wonderful job this year. But I think about new schools and all the new employees that we're going to need to fill these schools in these additional wings. So I can see our Human Resource Department's going to have a big job in the next few years coming up. They've done an excellent job so far finding our employees, but this would be, what, 100-something more employees
Well,
if you're talking new
there's
schools?
that,
and-
Ms. Gardner, but there's also the overcrowded elementary and middle schools and
The
teachers at
teachers
those
will be
schools who are
there with the
going to maybe jump
units.
at the opportunity to go, not that they're great schools right now, but.
And
they're
that
new
was
schools.
some of what I was alluding to, having lived through that a couple of times with rezoning, with a new school and faculty transfers. I think that's what Ms. Gardner's talking about. And then, but certainly you're correct regarding staffing of new positions.
Bus drivers,
particularly
custodians,
administration.
cafeteria. yeah, that whole
Administration.
new school.
Exactly, the cafeterias. So it's a big operation. And again, all the questions about timeline and construction, those are all important to me, but having also lived through a few rezoning, will certainly depend on Mr. Bryant, because that's his zone, to help us help us navigate through some of that.
Yes, sir.
I hope it will be a lot cleaner than what it is right now, so.
I just remember I lived through one of them, and J.C. Connor started many months out, preparing the communities, the workers, everyone for what was about to transpire. And I know you're already on that, but thank you for that in advance, because I remember the growing pains
Mhm.
that happened out of that. But out of that, I too remember the careful planning for classrooms that wanted to go to the new facility, those who wanted to stay where they were, and the sharing back and forth between the principal who would be appointed and those who were existing, so that they worked fluidly to get all of those placements made. And I know you are already on it, but it went fairly smoothly.
And I just thought, just a quick compliment here to Dr. Smith and Grant and Mr. McGinnis, even working through this process. It really is a great spot. Appreciate the seller potentially for the work that he did on his side to help us come up with this. I think it'll be something that, 20 years from now, when I'm driving through Crestview, I'll be able to see a school there and be proud of the fact that this board and these folks were part of it. But it is in an area right now where we don't have a school. And so if you remember when Riverside and Shoal River were built, there probably wasn't much out there when those schools were built.
Mhm.
And so
Not now.
great schools attract great families and great resources. And so we expect that to happen in this area too.
Well, I was
No
gonna,
doubt.
comment on the aerial photography that we had. There's a lot of green right there, but I have a feeling in 20 years that won't be the case, so. yeah.
Anything else? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr.
So, Madam
Horton.
Chair, based upon the report you've received this morning, there is an item on the agenda tonight, which you'll get to in just a moment, asking you to set a public hearing to consider that contract. And as part of having received this site selection report, would ask that when you deal with that the record will reflect that you have designated that area for the school, and then you can move into considering the purchase of the land.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to Section 7, Consent Agenda. 7.1 would be approval of that agenda. 7.2, approval of the minutes of the student disciplinary hearing of January the 9th, 2023, and the workshop meeting of January the 9th, and minutes of the regular meeting of January 9, 2023. 7.3, appropriation of District 2 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Fort Walton Beach High School for English Department iPads in the amount of $17,640, presented by Marty Gardner. 7.4, appointment of members to the 2023 Sales Surtax Citizens Oversight Committee, presented by Steve Horton.
Madam Chair, if I can comment on 7.4?
Sure.
I had the opportunity of attending the last Surtax Citizens Oversight Committee, and I just wanted to say thank you to all of those who were serving, but it was great to hear the discussion that was going on, a lot of input from the citizens on items that are going on now, but future items. So it's a very important committee that we have, but it takes those people to volunteer their time and come from all over the county. But just say thank you to those who have served and those who are going to serve again for another year.
Exactly, and a special thanks to Jason Belcher, whom I had the opportunity to work with on the Destin Rotary. Outstanding leader. 7.5, revised school board meeting protocols and guidelines, presented by Mr. McGinnis. 7.6, invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Julie Perry. 7.7, school donations, presented by Julie Perry. 7.8, payroll warrant register and accounts payable warrant register for December 2022, totaling $38,191,928.69, and bank transfers for December 2022, totaling $180,000, presented by Julie Perry. 7.9, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Apple Store for Education Institution, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.10, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Howard Technology Solutions, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.11, amendment to service agreement number 23-35, Connect ASL Incorporated, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.12, renewal of fuel purchasing agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida and Okaloosa Academy Incorporated, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.13, purchase and sale agreement of real property to Crestview, Florida, and authorization to advertise for public hearing, presented by Dr. Bill Smith. 7.14, RFP 23-01, sale of surplus property, 120 Lowry Place, Fort Walton Beach, presented by Dr. Bill Smith. 7.15, school improvement plan for Okaloosa County School District's Department of Juvenile Justice Facility, Okaloosa Youth Academy, presented by Dr. Anita Choice, Student Services, DJJ Educator. 7.16, Educational Partnership Agreement, EPA, between the Department of the Air Force, represented by the 96th Test Wing, Eglin Air Force Base, and the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, to promote STEM education, presented by Jeff Palmer. 7.17, CRRSA Act 2021 Open Door Grant for the 2022-2023 school year, presented by John Williams. 7.18, appropriation of District 3 School Board member capital outlay funds to Baker School for athletic equipment for the track team in the amount of $23,840, presented by Ms. Evanchik.
Okay, before we move on to the next section, I'm sorry, can we go back to what number is it? I'm sorry, about Lowry Place? What number is that? 14,
7.14.
Uh-huh. Just a couple of questions on that sale. I did see the stipulation where we can stay there for 2 years, or up to 2 years, which is great, so that we can make the shift of our employees and everything. So I just have some just kind of questions about us maintaining there. So that, would that mean that the obligation of like utilities and all that, does that stay on our budget until we vacate, or just some things like that?
Yes, ma'am. The utilities, water, and everything that we run that operation, that facility with, we would still pay like we've been doing for up to 2 years. It's that there would be no lease payments made to the purchaser of any kind, no rent needed to be paid.
Okay, so once we, if we agree on this and it's officially sold, then what about things like insuring it and all that kind of thing. If something were to happen, say, hey, God forbid, a fire or something down that, all of that's covered even though we are not officially renting it and yet we don't own it?
Well, what we'll do is create, if the board approves the sale, we will prepare an occupancy agreement, which will outline some of those details.
Okay.
Typically, in that kind of a rental situation, however, the owner of the property will maintain coverage on the buildings that are there, and as the lessor, if you will, we will also have certain coverages through our risk management department, like we do now, for at least the occupancy, for the
Yeah.
contents, for liability. So it'll be a combination, I'm sure, of coverages that we'll have to work out with them.
Okay, because I've just never really been involved in a situation where you've sold it, but you're living there and you're not paying, that. So I just wasn't sure about that.
It's just like a lease-back situation once we sell it, which is, it's not an uncommon situation. We just have it timed for up to 2 years, and part of the competitive bidding process was the responders had to put in there how much rent they would charge the district, and this proposal had no rent charged to
Right,
us,
that was-
except for the cost that we will incur for our own occupancy.
Yeah. So, did you have something?
Yes, and I think to that point, as you know, we've talked a little bit about timelines of this facility. And Mr. Horton, if you just give us, not timeline to date, but anticipated timelines as it pertains to some of the phases.
So board members will recall, a lot of work has been done already on planning and design for a central admin facility that relocates the people from the Lowry complex. It's our intent to bring a GMP for that this spring, again, sooner rather than later. So waiting on this particular property to close and the public hearing associated with it would produce additional available funding for us to relocate the employees here.
And can we speak to that just for a moment? You said additional funding. So are we using any of the half-cent sales tax proceeds for this building?
No, sir.
Okay.
Zero.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
But then
Yeah.
bringing a GMP back to the board for phase one of the work at Central, and that would anticipate to be started later this spring, potentially this summer, with the hope of phase one being completed by Christmas.
Okay, so you don't anticipate any problem with that 2-year agreement of getting our employees out of that facility at Lowry?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, so, okay, that's the concern, getting everybody. And yet, are we looking at trying to get them in the building, or we're not looking at portables or anything up here, right?
No, ma'am, we're not.
As far as we're
if they're-
anticipating.
Yeah, the plan would be for them to stay at Lowry Place until their offices are ready to occupy here, which I'm hopeful will be toward the end of calendar 2023.
Yeah, about how many people down at Lowry still?
Oh, I'm sure Bill knows the exact number.
Oh, it's
Probably-
okay, I just.
Yep. I want
Yeah.
to say 40 to 45 or
Okay.
something in that area.
Okay,
And then also keep in mind, phase one also contemplates building a new HR office space to move HR out of that cramped area that they're in right now.
and just for general information, do we have any idea what the buyers plan to do with that facility?
No, ma'am.
I know it doesn't relate to our sale, but just
Right.
curious
Yep.
if we had any idea.
No,
on that,
ma'am, I
so-
do not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comment about the consent portion of our agenda? Before moving on to Section 8. Moving on. Going. Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 8.1, Employees on Administrative Leave, represented by Dr. Lee Hale. 8.2, Deferred Retirement Option Program, DROP, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.3, Department Staffing Restructure, presented by Dr. Hale, Assistant Superintendent for HR. 8.4, Out-of-Field Report for the 2022-2023 school year, presented by Karen Peak. 8.5, Employee Separations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.6, Personnel Recommendations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.7, Employee Transfers, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.8, Employee Suspension, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.9, Employee Suspension by Dr. Hale. 8.10 was deleted, employee termination. 8.11, reinstatement, reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, or medical examination, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.12, leave without pay, presented by Dr. Hale. Any comment about Section 8? 9 would be discussion agenda. We have none today. 10, construction program owners representative business. 10.1, program status report by the board's representative to that committee. Mr. Bryant.
Really no report, except for the fact that Dr. Smith, I think, did a good job of explaining everything that's going to be happening, and I think that
Exciting.
takes enough of what I need to say, so it's exciting times.
Thank you. 10.2, program number 6, task order number 17, GMP for roof replacement at Blue Water Elementary School and Walker Elementary School, presented by Dr. Bill Smith. And that brings us to 11, attorney's business.
No report this morning.
Thank you. 12, superintendent's business. 12.1 would be out-of-state student trip request, and 12.2, correspondence and other matters from the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair and School Board. I shared with the school board several months ago that, each school board workshop will have a department that'll come up and share some information about their area, so I'd like to do that today, and then I'll have a few announcements after that. As you know, CTE is something that is very important to us. We know that the governor's goal by the year 2030 is for Florida to be #1 in the nation. And Ms. Branscombe says to me often, we want to be quicker than that in terms of here in Okaloosa. As you know, CTE is important to everything that we do. And there's a few programs that I'm extremely proud that Ms. Branscombe, Ms. Horton, and that department has helped really bring about. And from the artificial intelligence to the nursing programs to the carpentry and so many more. Over 24 different CTE programs in this school district, and the vast majority of them earning industry certifications or college credit. So I could not be more proud than the work that the CTE department is doing. And Ms. Branscombe, if you would come up and give the board an overview of CTE.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chambers and the board, for allowing me to come up and speak about CTE. Anytime I get a chance to brag on our programs, I'm excited to do that. Before I get started, though, it's not a team of one. We have a team of about 70 teachers, plus 4 more people in my office, so I would like to introduce the members of my office. Gerald Horton, she's our program administrator for AI. Paula Rogers is our CTE consulting teacher, which is a new position this year, and David Welch, who is our CTE TSA over building trades, automotive, and things like that. So they have been amazing to work with, and we're getting a lot of things done, and every day something new is happening. So as you know, next month, February, is CTE month, and so we like to share with you things that are going to be happening and things that have been happening in our program across the district, because we couldn't do this without your support and Mr. Chambers' support and his office staff to get through and make these things happen, because there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to CTE. It's not just CTE as a district position, it's the community itself. So our students, we're teaching our students to design the next AI gadget, and that right now is huge. If you've seen anything going on in the news about AI, it's massive, kind of scary and very futuristic, but it's happening every day in our schools. Our kids are learning how to program computers and network and cybersecurity, and they're leaving. We had a student from Crestview High School that is just last week passed the Security Plus certification. So it's pretty amazing the things that they're doing. That student can leave high school and get a job right now. And as you see by the CTE program, document I just gave you, the first one, the CTE teachers across the district have been working hard to prepare students for success this year. So if you'll turn to the page that says CTE program information, it's actually on page 2. These are just a few of the things going on in the district, and I want to highlight them. You'll have a chance to go back and peruse the document, but these are some of the highlights that we've been working through. First of all, as Mr. Chambers mentioned, we just received a $1.2 million grant from Triumph to open our nursing program. That program has started. We have students in class right now, and they are already learning a lot of amazing things. They don't get any hands-on this year because this is the first year of the program, but come on Friday, we're touring the hospital, Foote Walton Beach Medical Center. Well, actually, it's Foote Walton Destin Hospital now. They've changed their names. But the kids are going to get to see the new facility, and then they're going to go over to the hospital and take a tour. We will have 2 labs and 2 classrooms there, and we will be moving the CTE office over there as well through Triumph funds. The big thing right now, though, is our AI program.
And Ms. Brascom?
Yes, sir.
Before you go there, so also talk about, on the nursing program, the significance of working with the community in terms of needs and the shortage in nurses.
Well, exactly. So as you know, if any of you have made any doctor's appointments lately, those things they're not fast. You can't get in fast. So there's a huge critical need in the medical field, not just for nurses, but every type of technician. So the students in our nursing program are in both Crestview and Niceville. We have wonderful partnerships with both North Okaloosa Medical Center, which if you saw on our Facebook and Twitter page last week, our kids started their internship with North Okaloosa Medical Center. Amazing partnership. And then, of course, Foote Walton Beach Hospital, they have given us about 6,500 square feet to bring in our nursing program there. And they want to grow that even more because while they need nurses and CNAs, they also need lab techs in the medical lab to draw blood. So our students are learning not just how to be a nurse or CNA, they're also learning phlebotomy. So we're excited to be able to move forward with some of those programs. That community partnership is major, and because of the partnership that we have with North Okaloosa and Foote Walton Destin Hospital, Ascension Hospital is coming on board with us. We don't have that articulation agreement quite yet, so I don't have that in here because we don't have it signed. But as soon as we get that, that's going to be one of our partnerships as well. So people are starting to see what we're doing, and they're coming out of the woodwork to us to partner with us.
And I have just a quick question, Madam Chair, if you might take one now?
Yes,
would you
sir.
prefer?
Yeah, please do.
All right. So I'm thinking about all the wonderful opportunities that you and your folks are creating for these students and for their future. And suddenly I was struck by the thought, do you guys spend time talking with the students about how important in today's world background checks are for their future employment and their social media accounts and all those kinds of things? And if you do, maybe you could speak to that for a minute.
Well, absolutely. Thank you. That was a great question because that is definitely something every one of our CTE programs do. So that happens with the teacher one-on-one, but we share with them and off the top of my head, I can't think of one particular person, but I know it's in our framework, so we have to share with them. But they're going into, I know that Dr. McKenzie up at Crestview High School, that's part of her lesson because she's letting those kids know that the industry is looking at what you're putting on the public Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, everything.
Very good.
Because most of us do this. When I'm looking at teachers to hire, I go look at their social media because I want to see what they're doing. I want to make sure that we're getting a quality teacher. So it is part of the curriculum and it is happening. I can't give you a specific off the top of my head,
No,
but
that's
it is
good. That's
happening
good
in our
because,
classrooms.
I'm afraid sometimes maybe in their world, they may not think about it the way that future employers will be thinking about it.
Exactly. And the teachers, I think, do a really good job about that. Well, actually, I can tell you one right now, Mr. Legaretta at Niceville High School. He hammers that with his kids. He's a digital video teacher, and he's all the time engaging those kids and showing them this is what you don't want to do because they're right in the thick of it. And sometimes I don't think they think that all of these things can
Right.
hurt them later
That's
on.
exactly right.
But we're trying to teach them that it does.
good.
And I just want to highlight as well, Ms. Branscombe has schooled me up on CTE. And one of the things that she hammers to me and to others is we want to be, we want to work with our community as much as possible. So if there's a need in the community, we want to make sure our CTE programs match the needs in the community. So this nursing program, artificial intelligence, which she's about to talk about, carpentry, literally people from the community coming to us saying, hey, what can you do? And then Ms. Branscombe and her team go to work and create this, and then get grants to be able to help support this. We used to talk about, middle school to high school pipeline. Now we're talking about elementary to the workforce pipeline, and that's under Ms. Branscombe's leadership, so I appreciate that.
Well, and on that note as well, so I'm a member of the One Okaloosa Economic Development Council, as well as Techman, which is a technology, manufacturing, engineering type of organization. And I go to every meeting, and the things that we hear, they have to tell us what they need from us, and we have that connection because we want to make sure that whatever program we're starting is on our targeted occupational list for the state. We can't start a program without it, but we hear a lot of things. Now, unfortunately, we can't create every program that they would like for us to create. We don't have the space for it, but we do listen to what they're saying because we have to have the workforce ready to go into their jobs. One of the things that One Okaloosa really does is they count on Okaloosa County School District. They depend on us, especially when they're trying to get industry and manufacturing companies to come to our area. Shoal River Creek, Shoal River Ranch, if you're familiar with that, they're all the time getting people up there to look at that property, to purchase the property, and they bring us in as speakers to their meetings to share what we're doing in the school system with the industries. So we have a really big impact, and on numerous occasions we've heard from the people that are coming in from those site selection committees that have said they have never seen a school district and post-secondary and community work together like Okaloosa County is working. And I know that's because of the support we have from you all and the support we have from our community, and of course the amazing teachers that we have, because they're the ones that are bringing the kids into our programs. So to me, that's exciting because they're we're listening to them and they're listening to us.
Can I just interject right there that this goes right back to what Todd Whitaker said at Professional Development, that great schools create great communities. And you see this partnership, and you
Yes, ma'am.
see both these schools and the community becoming stronger and stronger because we do work together. But he mentioned that several times about great schools bring great communities, create great communities, I think. it was the-
And I completely believe that.
You're seeing it, yes,
Yeah.
definitely seeing it.
Well, I've been doing this for about 38 years, and I'm seeing in the last 10 years, it's becoming more and more interactive with the
How
community.
important, yes.
Yeah. So the other thing Mr. Chambers mentioned was the artificial intelligence. So we have just been going gung-ho with that, and you'll see the second little booklet that I've given you. Ms. Horton put this together for our our AI advisory committee, and it's going to give you a lot more in-depth information. A lot of things have been happening since we started this program. We have over 300 students in the program, and we weren't expected to have that many students to start out with. So at the Triumph Gulf Coast meeting, at the last meeting in December, they announced that we were a grant of excellence for Triumph, which speaks highly of Ms. Horton and the program she's putting together. So we're excited about that. Right now, we have 8 elementary schools and 1 high school. And next year, we're working on bringing Crestview High School into the fold for the artificial intelligence. The kids in 8th grade are earning high school credit. They're taking, they're learning how to program. Is that my timer, my buzzer? Is my time up? Okay.
We have a gong.
Because sometimes people have to tell me to stop.
The floor falls out below you.
So we're really excited. Mr. Chambers and some members from the AMP board has gotten to see the classroom. I think you were really impressed when you walked in. We remodeled the Choctawhatchee High School classroom, and they have a state-of-the-art classroom. It's really neat to go in there, and the kids, it's flexible seating, and the kids are programming. When we brought the team in last week for the advisory committee meeting, they could not believe what the kids are doing at such a early stage in the program. They're learning how to program Python. And that actually brought in a lot of support from Air Force Research Lab, local software programming companies. And one of the things I want to mention to you, this was just told to us last week that I was a meeting with Techman meeting, and Matt Zimmerman from Beast Code spoke up, and he said he does not want his students, the people he hires, to go to college. He wants those programmers to come from our classrooms to his business to learn to code. And we heard that last week, didn't we, Ms. Horton? We heard that last week at the AMPT Advisory Committee as well. Because what ends up happening is when they're going to college and getting these this coursework and these certifications, by the time they get out of college, it's obsolete because it's changing so much. And each company has their own form of programming that they like to use. So they want to teach their students straight from or employees straight from the get-go. They don't want them to learn bad habits or learn something they don't need to know while they're going to college. Now, we are not advocating that people don't go to college, but this is just something that some of our partners shared with us in the last couple of years. We're finding this out.
Madam Chair, may I ask?
Of course.
Make a comment. So you mentioned Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
So Mr. Zimmerman is a product of the Okaloosa County School District.
Yes, he is.
And I knew him when he was working a little bag boy at Publix. So it's neat to see what what we can interject into these students. And of course, he's a very successful businessman now.
Very.
So I thought it was interesting that you mentioned Mr. Zimmerman's name there. But he is a product of Okaloosa County Schools. So.
Definitely. Well, this is out of his mouth. He spoke to about this at our Techman meeting last week. One of the things that we've done is we've started building trades programs. Now we have a building program for middle school students at almost every middle school. There are some schools that we can't open a building trades program in because we have to have a feeder school for it to feed into. So we don't have any in the central area because Niceville High School does not offer that particular program, but almost every other school has it, with the exception of Destin Middle School. And we would probably do it there too, but we don't have the space. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the limitations that we have in several areas in starting programs, is there's just not enough space. This year, we had to hire 14 new CTE teachers, 14. And some of that was because we started new programs, some of that was because teachers retired, but some of that was because the industry stole our teachers. They're seeing that we're training our teachers to teach this to the students, and then they go out and go back to the industry, unfortunately. But most CTE teachers are coming directly from the industry as well.
And Ms. Branscombe, you might hit this in a second, but just in case. So the building program,
Yes.
so the carpentry program that I took part in when I was in school probably isn't anything like the building program that students are taking part in today. Just briefly, just describe, what that course kind of looks like.
Well, so one of the key aspects of this course is safety. So we start out, they can't even go into the shop, cannot touch a tool until they've gone through our safety program. And they get certified in the safety, so we can show their parents and them that they can do this. So there's a software that we use that the students it's called SP2. They go through this safety piece. Then they go and learn the Home Builders Institute's curriculum, and they have the opportunity to earn industry certifications. So they are up at Laurel Hill. They're building a huge dollhouse. It looks more like a shed. They're building a dollhouse. Of course, you know that our Okaloosa Technical College, they're doing tiny houses. But our other programs, the high school programs, we are going to try to start getting into building some sheds that we can build it, and I can buy the supplies for it, and then donate it back to the school as maybe a storage unit or something like maybe a baseball, softball, football storage unit, so we can give back to the program, and it would not cost that that department anything. We're still trying to work out some things with building codes because we have to have some not necessarily permits, but we have to get Mr. Cox and the maintenance or facilities on board with us. But they're doing all kinds of things. And they also do things at their individual schools to give back to their schools. They build picnic tables for their seating for lunch, for their outside seating, and they're always learning something new and building something new. One of the things, and it's in here, but I'll go ahead and talk about it now. One of the things that we're finding is that, such as Davidson Middle School, we just put a program there. We need more power, more amperage for our tools and equipment, and we need to get them outside. So we're looking at writing a Triumph grant to bring in some funds to build awnings at all of our schools that have our construction programs, because they can't do it inside. And it's loud and it's dusty and all of that. So we are working with them on getting that moved. We met with Dr. Smith and with Mr. Meyer last week up at Davidson to come up with some things to put in place to make those programs work better. But we would like to give them the opportunity. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but many of our programs are so outdated, the buildings are. And so we're trying to do what we can to put these programs in place with state-of-the-art equipment. And we have to run power, and we have to make sure we have the dust collection systems and all of that. So that's been a challenge, especially with the building trades, because there's a lot of equipment in small spaces. So we're trying to get those awnings built so we can put their tools and things outside. If you ever get a chance, I'd love to do a tour and get everybody into some of our classrooms to see what our kids are doing. The middle schools and the high schools are amazing. We post as much as we can. Teachers don't send stuff like we would like them to, but we post as much. When the teachers send us things, we get it out there, or we go ourselves and take pictures of what they're doing. But the kids love the building trades program, and that's one of the programs that we could probably have 10 classes of building trades, kind of like culinary. They want to build and they want to eat.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to make a comment, as we're sitting here looking at acquiring land for new facilities, and then we have a building trades. So first of all, I certainly see any new schools, if we end up doing that, being designed with CTE in mind, which will be exciting because we've never been able to design. And then I see maybe student input in that, if not being able to actually do physical stuff. I know there's liability to that, but at least having that input from our students, or by the time we get going, these students will be out there. They may be building it.
Yes.
So that's exciting to think about how that cycle will go. So I can't wait to see.
And we are working with Building Industry Association. We've got an educational advisory committee for the building trades, and they have been phenomenal with us getting donations and connecting us with industry. I've been talking to Representative Maney's office. We're working on a bill to allow our high school students to go out onto the job sites and get that hands-on training, because we can teach them things in the classroom, but when they get out there, they learn so much more, because they're right in the midst of everything going on, and they can see all the different moving parts for the program and what they've learned. Oh, I know.
Don't we have apprenticeships?
We have not necessarily apprenticeships, but internships.
Yeah.
So we are working on that. The problem that we're facing, and this is one of the things that Representative Maney's trying to help us with, we have our workman's comp with the district will cover those students when they're on their jobs or in an intern at any area, not just building trades, but any area. But OSHA and the building company, the contractor, their workman's comp insurance may not allow our students on their jobs. So that's what Representative Maney is trying to work out through legislation. So we need those kids to get that hands-on experience. We have a lot of kids working with parents in the summertime, on the weekends, doing a lot of construction. A lot of our parents are in those career fields, and our kids are working with them. But it's kind of under the table. It's not something that we're putting them in there. They're just
Right.
going to do it with their family.
Sure.
So we're real thankful for the Building Industry Association, because they have been amazing, and they're giving us support, and they're part of our committees that we have to get input from them as to what they need. So then, so the other thing is this I'm so excited about, because on January 31st, we get to find out who the Teacher of the Year is, and 2 teachers out of the 3 finalists are CTE teachers. And that just shows the value of what we're doing when 2 of our top teachers are going to be are from CTE, so that's exciting. It's Royal Preston and Marina Minucci. And then we're also maintaining our kids code. So we've been working with the teachers and training. We've got these new little pieces of technology called Finches. And those, that we had a staff development for the teachers. They got to learn how to program these little robots to go and do different things. And the kids love it. So there's, you know, the kids actually get to see these moving parts. And also, one of the things that Ms. Horton has done through Bird Brain Technologies, they have different, they had the little bits that we bought, then they have the finches, and along with the finches are the hummingbirds. So some of our middle school AI classes are programming the hummingbird through the Big Bird Technologies. So it's really kind of neat. And the teachers are really excited and really have gotten on board with it. Some teachers are just, we have a teacher at Destin Middle School. I don't know if you saw the post I posted last week with her. She did, this is coding in the AI class, and she did an Italian, Marlin's Italian restaurant, where she taught the kids how to build pizza through programming. They had to program it and put the dough on and put the sauce on and put the, you know, the different toppings. It was really cute. So unique types of instruction that our teachers are giving our kids, and we're pretty excited about that. Last summer, we held 7 summer camps, and that was through our generous donation from the Florida Power and Light and the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation. That was huge. The kids loved it, and we're going to be expanding on that this summer. So we're hoping to have more, like 14 this summer coming up. So as you can see on that list, there's more than just those few things that I've talked about. A lot of things going on, but I want to share now with you some of the statistics of what our CTE programs have been doing. So right now, we have over 7,800 students sitting in CTE classes, middle school and high school. We have, so over the years, different programs are being daggered, and some of our programs are being phased out. So now we have 19 programs. We did have 24, but we're seeing some duplication in some areas, so we're streamlining things and we're trying to get the programs set up. So this year, we've now moved to 19. The state will dagger these programs. It's not anything we're doing. The states will just say those programs are no longer of value, so they'll close those programs. Last year, our students earned 1,382 industry certifications, and that's like you and me as an adult going out and taking a test. They are hard. They're challenging. Had one principal say, "Can you find an easier certification?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't. They're industry certifications. They're for adults, and we're having our students earn these certifications. It's pretty exciting." We had 1,079 students earn digital tool certificates. Now, all of these industry certs and digital tool certificates come with funding. And the digital tool certificate just shows the competency that student has in that particular exam. And it doesn't give them any articulation credit for college. It is a middle school and elementary type of cert. So, but our industry certifications, many of our industry certs also articulate for college credit. So we're pretty excited about that. Last year, we earned over $820,000 in certification funding. So in the past, 15 years, we have raised over $10.2 million through CTE through our certifications. And all of that money goes back into each program. So the program that earns it gets that money to spend it. So that's pretty exciting. We have 101 CTE courses, and 80% of our courses are either honors weight or AP credit weight. So we get a lot of students in our programs because they see the value of, and the GPA is a competitive market at the high school. Everybody wants to be that top tier in their class. So this gives them that opportunity to come in and learn a hands-on skill. Whether they're going into that department or not, or that program or not, it gives them a hands-on skill to learn. And then we have 45 of our courses that meet practical art, which is a graduation requirement, fine art, practical art graduation requirement. 4 equally rigorous courses that meet science credentials as an elective science course, and then 21 of our courses meet online graduation, since we have that online piece as a graduation requirement.
And a lot of folks might not know that these courses, some of them, about half it looks like, are weighted.
Yes, they are. They're honors or AP weight. 80% of them are.
So when we talk about CTE, it includes honors courses.
Well, and one of the things that, when we had the choice program, one of the things that was the mantra or the logo or the saying for choice was rigor, relevance, and relationships. And the rigor is really showing here when you see that 80% of our courses are honors or AP credited. And you walk in there and you'll get blown away when you see what these kids are doing, even in the middle schools. You know, I couldn't do that. So some of the things that we have coming up within the next semester, and we'd love for you guys to be a part of it, we will be having our CTE Career Signing Day again. And we're, matter of fact, going back to the office today to get that planned, and we'll start more likely to be in the month of April, but we'll let you know that date early enough where you can come join us. Mr. Chambers came last year. It was pretty amazing. We had over 300 people there, so it was really exciting. Every 5 years, our automotive program has to go through what we used to call NATAP. Now it's called ACE, Educational Accreditation. So this is the only program that the state offers that has to have a national accreditation. And so if we don't have this accreditation for the program, we cannot offer it. Well, we can offer it, but it would be on our dollar. So we get FTE funding, and that funds that program. So if we don't have that program accredited, we can't give them Perkins money, they can't earn CAPE money, they can't do anything. We won't even get FTE for the course. So it is very strenuous documentation process, and we've been meeting with the advisory board for the automotive program. We had a meeting last week. And hearing the people from industry talk, we have Step One represented as our automotive advisory committee. We have Alan Turner Chevrolet. We have Gary's Auto Salvage. We have some local mom and pop shops there. We have a student that was a Crestview High School graduate. She graduated in 2020. She's now working for, David, am I right, Step One? She made $80,000 last year as a service writer. Coming out of that program, no college degree, nothing. And we have another student working for Chrysler in Crestview. He made, as a technician, over $100,000. So, you know, when people say that's a grease monkey job, it's not. It is not. It is I mean, your car probably has over 100 networks in it. 256. Well, I was right. I said over 100. So all the newfangled technology out there, there's more technology in our vehicles than what we had before. So the kids are learning all of that. And they're learning Ohm's Law. You go in there and you see all these different things and you're just blown away. And matter of fact, our automotive teacher and one of our math teachers worked together so the math students could learn Ohm's Law from the way that the automotive teacher taught it. So it was really kind of cool to see that collaboration. Another collaboration, Latavia Delaford over at Destin Middle School. She is amazing. She collaborates with her science teachers and her English teachers and her math teachers to bring all of those subjects into her classroom. And the kids are on fire. She's just pretty amazing. We have a young man at Crestview High School that received the HBI Ray and Robert and Amy Harper scholarship, and he's getting $2,500 as a scholarship, cash money for him to buy his tool kit and things that he needs to go into the industry. So he's going to be flying out to Las Vegas at the end of the month to receive this award. So that's pretty exciting too. We will be participating in the Career and College Fair on March 4th. That's put on by the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation, and we're real excited to see the kids come through. They a lot of them don't even know we have these programs, and you wonder why, because we put it out there, but some of them they just didn't know that was there or that they could do that particular program. We have students that are going to be going to Washington D.C. In April to participate in the House of Code recognition. We had the Niceville High School students won the first Congressional App Challenge a couple of weeks ago. So now they get to move forward and showcase what they did with the state of Florida up in Las Vegas. Construction Career Days, I would love for y'all to join us on that. So DOT, Florida Department of Transportation, puts on this Construction Career Days, and it's not, you think, okay, they're just going to go out there and they're going to see a lot of construction stuff. No, there's programming. There's logistics. There is the construction piece of it, but you go in and you see all these different companies there that our kids get to sit and listen to and say, I didn't know they like programming a red light. they have to learn how to program these things. They have to know how these pieces work. So we have invited, last week, we sent it out to all the schools. They pay for transportation, they'll pay for subs, and we want to get as many kids there as we can. They also offer scholarships, and one of our students who attended it last year from Laurel Hill won the scholarship. So I think we had 2 students that get the scholarship, so that's pretty exciting. And then, of course, we have students participating in Skills USA, and that's a competitive event for our programs. In our district, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we are really lucky and so blessed to have y'all on our team and supporting us, because you're out there in the classrooms and y'all are seeing what's going on. So very happy. And our teachers are innovative. They are putting things out there that makes kids, they don't even know they're learning. It's fun. They're having a good time with it, but they're still learning. So we're very, those are the ones, the teachers in the field are the ones that make these programs so successful. Now, we, in the past year, we have been working on grant funding. So if you'll look over on the last page of your little booklet, you'll see we have earned over $4.6 million in grants for the CTE program. So we've earned quite a few grants, and we're continuing to look for grants and writing grants, and we're going to be writing another one, as I mentioned earlier, through Triumph for our for our carpentry building trades program. So with those things in mind, we need to look ahead. What do we need in the future? Well, we want to increase the knowledge about CTE in our schools and in our communities, because people don't realize what all we have going on, and we have a lot. We are going to be renovating the Crestview High School engineering building for the artificial intelligence program. We're working with Mr. Meyer and Dr. Smith and with Jacobs. They put in a pre-GMP for them to give us some hard numbers on the cost so we can get forward and moving with that. We're hoping to have that done by the fall. We're not sure if we will have that completed at Crestview High School, but we want it to be a Google-like atmosphere, kind of like what we did at Choctaw, and make it so inviting and just relaxed, and so they can learn and have space to work on their robots and building those types of things. We want to work towards relocating the Crestview High School cosmetology program. Right now, that program sits in a portable, and when it rains or there's bad weather, they have to go to the library. And we would like to be able to relocate them somewhere else if we could. Later this week, I'll be meeting Dr. Smith and Mr. Meyer and I think Mr. Bolton up at Baker, because we want to update their culinary program. It is from the 70s. I mean, it is bad. And so I don't have the funds to do that, but we want to find ways that we can get some funding to help us update. I can buy equipment and things like that, but I can't pay for the construction piece. So we're going to see what we can do in having a plan to move forward with that. At Crestview High School, we had the criminal justice program for a long time. If you've watched our Facebook page, we were able to get some cubicles donated to us through the Jacobs building to put in their 911 simulations, and it is pretty cool. But we want to go even further and expand that classroom a little bit and add a Milo system. It's a simulation system. So it would not only benefit our students, it would also help our resource officers in the district for training purposes. We would open it up to partner with the Sheriff's Department as well. So we've been talking to them some. They're very excited. They want us to do that. So we just have to get that space ready to go. We'd love to see our automotive program at Crestview High School expanding, and that would be another Triumph grant. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be relocating our office over to the medical building so we can be there as program administrators of that program. And we want to continue our kids code. That is critical, because we've got to get that spark to those kids there in elementary so they can move on. The things those kids can do, it's amazing. And I think part of the problem is it's intimidating for the teachers. But once the teachers get involved in it, they get excited because it is fun to do and just to make these little things go. They're very creative. And of course, we want to make sure that all of our schools are updated with the program information. We put together a curriculum guide for all of the schools to give to them so they know exactly what courses that we offer, the course description, the program weight, what kind of requirements or prereqs are required, so everybody's on the same page, that not one school is doing one thing one way and another school with something else.
And so, Madam Chair and School Board, So as you can see, there's a lot going on in CTE. We're right there in line in terms of the vision of the state, but I think Ms. Branscombe and her team, I think, are taking it even a step further. So I just thank you for this fantastic briefing, and to each of you in working with our teachers, our programs. Just appreciate what we're doing.
I think we,
Thank you.
thank you. I think we may have some comments or questions.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I have, Ms. Branscombe, first of all, thank you for all that you and your team do. For all of us that are on social media, I know we get a lot from you, and I know we try to share the information that you send with
Yes,
us. So
thank
we
you.
do thank you for all that y'all do to advertise all the great things that are going on in our school district. Like anything else that's happening in our district, staffing is an issue. Can you tell me, or explain to the public the challenges that you have? Because you talked about, we get these people in that have these certifications, and they come in and then they might go off because they get taken by the industry that they're in. Do those teachers have to meet the same requirements as as one of our educational teachers that teaches the core class? Do they have to have the same certifications? And what challenges do you foresee us being able to recruit and retain those teachers?
Very good question, and it's challenging, just like it is hiring a regular teacher. There's some differences with CTE because the state gives us the opportunity to hire people from industry. It's not very often you find a welding instructor who has a degree.
Right.
So, and especially an education degree. So we have what we call a district certificate. And so we can hire people from industry. If they have a degree, then they only have to have 2 years of experience. If they do not have a degree, but they have experience in the field, they have to have at least 6 years of experience in a particular field. So the problem is, and fortunately for our district, that the salary has come up considerably. So we're able to entice more people because you start looking at benefits that the person's getting. They may not get a benefit when they're self-employed in that field, but when they come to us, they'll have the benefits. They may be making $100,000 in the construction field, but they can come to us and make about almost $50,000 plus bonus money for certifications and things like that. I will post things out on our social media pages to try to advertise for new teachers. I'll go to Indeed and put it out there. I'll go through person by person the list of people that with their degrees to see if they would be available or have enough experience to teach a particular program. But it is hard, and it's not just here that we're having this issue with the instructors. It's across the state,
Right.
and it's challenging. And then on top of all of that, while they have to have coursework, just like a regular teacher would have to have, that's a career changer, they have to have certain coursework in order to get their district certificate. But they also don't know classroom management. So one of the things that we were approved for this past year was having the CTE consulting teacher, and Ms. Rogers has been amazing. She goes to the classrooms and she works with those teachers one-on-one, and she shares with them the good practices, the things they need to change, things they need to fix, and the principals love it because not only is she helping those teachers, she's also able to help veteran teachers that need some help, that may be struggling in some areas. But we've seen a lot of success this year, and out of the 14 teachers that we've hired, we've done pretty good with that retaining. We have had 2 of them realize teaching wasn't for them, and one of our new teachers actually starts today in the STEM Academy over at Oak Cliff STEM Academy. But it's challenging.
Right.
And, once we find out if somebody's leaving, we'll start advertising and looking now. And everywhere I go, anybody I meet, I always ask them, you want to teach?
Well, and my comment is, I think it's fair, and I know I've mentioned this before, and I think there's a correlation between the higher graduation rate we have now with the fact that we've made a bigger investment in the CTE programs, because this year was almost 93%. I know 6 years ago it was 88%. So I truly believe that, we're keeping those children who we thought years ago everybody was college bound. Now they found something that they enjoy. They excel at it, and obviously looking at the results that you've produced to us today, I mean, they're going out into the to the workforce as soon as they graduate, making a ton of money. Thank God that we're offering financial literacy classes now
Yeah.
to help these students that are going to be making $80,000 a year right out of high school. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Anyone else?
I just want
Comment
to
or
say thank you
question?
for your presentation and to your team. It's exciting to see what's going on, but also what the future is going to bring.
Yeah.
Do you have an extra copy of this? I have somebody that I'd like to, in our community,
I don't
provide.
have an extra copy of,
Okay, and I can get, okay. Thank you. And nice job, you and your team. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Yeah, and one other thing, I will say that, the programs are great. I took my wife's car last year to Crestview High School. They've replaced the shocks and struts and did a great job. But if you do go into like Crestview High School, I mean, literally, it's like going into a car dealership's garage. I mean, it has everything in there. And I know Mr. Welch, and you started the program and now your son is following in your footsteps. It's a great program over there. So I know they will work on your car, and there is a fee, of course, but that helps fund the class. So.
well, and to that point also, and I know I can talk about CTE all the time, I'm sorry, but at Crestview High School, we're overloaded with the automotive program, and so we've been working with Holly too to start it in 8th grade. So if we can get some space there, eventually we want to start an 8th grade program that can feed into our high school to kind of give the upper level kids more focus and more hands-on training. So, sorry, I know I love it.
No, that's okay. Thank you
Thank you,
very
Ms.
much.
Branscombe.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, anything else?
I will yield my time.
Thank you very much. That was very informative. So that brings us down to Section 13, Board Members' Announcements and/or Requests for Information. And I think I'll start with Mr. Bryant today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really no comments except for the fact that I was with Mr. Frakes last week for the Florida School Board Insurance Trust quarterly meeting. And Mr. Chambers, I know I made a request that he speak at our next workshop. He informed me that he had something else committed on that workshop, so I asked that he come to the second February meeting to go over a lot of great information. I just feel like Russ, being the expert in this field, could explain a lot of the things that we went over. But a lot of great things happening at FSBIT that are very positive, considering what all we've been through, the state of Florida has been through this year with the hurricanes and other things. So we'll have that report in the second February meeting. But other than that, that's
We'll
it.
look forward to that. Thank you. Dr. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, well, I have several things, but I'll just mention one at today's workshop, and that would be congratulations to the Choctawhatchee cheerleaders who won first place at the Emerald Coast Cheer Championships.
Super.
That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Gardner?
Yes, you know how much I enjoy reading Catch the Wave, the employees, and also the parent. I've mentioned this several times past few years. I think it's one of the best documents that we have, of the many documents that we have coming out. I think it's very informative. But I'd like to encourage our parents or individuals, community, to go on the Okaloosa County School District website, look at this, because it does highlight things that we say throughout our workshops about different teachers and students, their recognitions. I know the January edition has the Sunshine State Scholars announced. It has the Martin Luther King Oratorical Poster Contest mentioned. It also has an overview of things that we talk about in our workshop, as Mr. Horton talked at past meeting about the controlled open enrollment. There's some detailed information. There's the website you can go right to. I think that's the one that has maybe a little video clip or something that shows how to work your way through that. There is the school climate survey that we always encourage our parents or guardians who have a student in a school to please go to the climate survey. We do appreciate your feedback because it does help us in the future as far as our planning and how we can continue to improve. Mr. Gore, it has the social studies textbook adoption on there. Any parent, community member that wants to know more about the adoption and the two different books we're looking at. Again, very easy directions. There's the websites that will link you right to it. Important dates. I know it has the graduation dates that are coming up, and I look at that and I'm thinking, goodness, that is just right around the corner. So I just want to encourage our parents, our community to and it's Dr. White mentioned one time our Nelson ratings are not that high, but if you don't have time to sit and watch the workshops and the board meetings, to please go and look at this Catch the Wave, because it is very informative, and Mr. Chambers, your departments do a very nice job providing this information, so thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Evanchik?
Well, it is Literacy Week, yay. And so the theme is Dive into Reading. That came from the state. So I know many of us have been asked to come read, and I'll be going a couple places, but one is over at Florosa Elementary, one of my schools, where they have a new book vending machine. I can't wait to see how that works out, how you get the books out of the vending machine, so that's good. So we're looking forward to doing some reading this week. Also want to announce that the Title I program is having a parent night at Beachside Community Church in Fort Walton on February 10th, and this is for the entire district. Anyone involved with the Title I or wants information about the Title I program can come to that, and we're reaching out to parents and others for that. Want to congratulate some students at Baker for being selected for the All-State Choir. In the high school, Reagan Peacher, and in the middle school, Ava Mullins. And also, again, I've mentioned it before, but Mr. Stuart Campbell up there does a great job, because he does not only middle school and high school choir, but also the band. He does all 4 of those programs and does a great job, and very enthusiastic, a lot of energy teacher. And the other thing I wanted to ask is, Mr. Bryant, anything come and Mr. Chambers, anything come from that legislative list? I know you went,
So.
what's the
yes.
status of that?
So, they're in committee weeks right now, they've begun, but if you do know, I did ask Ms. McGowan to send y'all the first bill, the first one, number one, and it's a 50-page document that has to do with, looks like vouchers and school choice and things like that. So, of course, it's just the beginning. They'll start the process, but there is a lot going on. I think school choice, parental rights is going to be a big topic, a big focus again, and but I think school choice is probably one of the top things, and mental health is another. So, but nothing really to begin with. I know I saw Representative Maney last night, yesterday afternoon at the fairgrounds, and you know, we're very fortunate. Judge Maney and Senator Broxton are really good friends for public education, and I know they're really focused on trying to highlight a lot of the things that were on our legislative platform forum the other day. So a lot. I was told that a representative from Southwest Florida, when their school board member approached them about the legislative priorities, they feel comfortable that all of the Florida School Board Association legislative priorities will probably get approved, which is a win for our public education.
That's wonderful. Anything else?
I think his.
And I think to your question, I think we all know March 7th, the legislative session begins, but a lot of the work is happening right now as well. So like I shared, I do have meetings that are coming up with each of the legislators. That's going to be one-on-one meetings. To your request, also sent our legislative priorities to the governor's office, to their chief of staff, spoke with that gentleman, and we'll be having a one-on-one conversation with him, and to be able to get that straight to the governor as well. So we did that.
I just have one more thing, Mr. Superintendent. I see where graduation rates for the 2021 year have come out. And of course, we all know that year, the challenges that we had. And I was just wondering, I'm assuming that you're sifting through that and looking at those different variables, and you'll be presenting us perhaps a report, if not in session, probably through email or something, that explains some of the situations with that. I know the rates dropped somewhat, but again, that was what we use unprecedented year. We started late, lots of different things.
I can share some of that with you right now.
What's on the
So the
news?
state had a conference call last week where they shared, in essence, graduation rates across the state of Florida had dropped. So they're comparing this year's graduation rates to pre-pandemic graduation rates. So we know that during the pandemic, a lot of the students were held harmless. Therefore, graduation rates went up even higher. So ours went down 0.4. So in essence, we remained where we were before, so about 87.5% of our students graduating. One of the things that I think we are proud of is that our students with disabilities, our graduation rate went up. Our students of poverty, our graduation rates went up as well. Our major high schools, to include Niceville, Fort Walton, Choctaw, Crestview, Laurel Hill, and Baker, all of their graduation rates are above 90%, as high as 96%. So it's something that we are sifting through. Obviously, we'd love to have 100% of our students graduate on time. Remember, this is a cohort. It starts with when they enter ninth grade and then when they leave their senior year. So it is something that we're looking at. It just came out, I believe it was on Friday, when that information came out, I believe. A little bit last week it came out, but we're still sifting through that information.
Good, thank you. I'm good.
Anything else? Thank you. And I think I did see a little blurb on Channel 3 News about that and how well we and Santa Rosa and Walton had done comparatively across the state. So congratulations.
Thank you.
On that. I just have a couple of things. One is that we did do very well in the Martin Luther King contest. I saw the kudos to that. I see Dr. Sills is here, and I know her compadre, Elaine Anderson. They were both very involved in that, so thank you for your work on that. I was very proud to see those students on social media. And then, again, we mentioned the Teacher of the Year finalist and that person to be unveiled later in the month. But just going into those classrooms and seeing these are representative of what goes on every day, all year long in all of our classrooms. But Ryan Patterson from Destin Middle, who teaches social studies, and Miss Minucci at Pryor that teaches coding, and then Royal Preston at OTC, who builds houses. So the variety of things that are happening across our district and the depth and breadth of knowledge that they bring to those students is just really phenomenal when you see them in action. So I was very proud to see all of those. I'll just also add my kudos and looking forward to all the literacy celebrations going on this week. And I too am planning to read at 2 or 3 classrooms, as I know all of us are. So excited to be part of that celebration. And that is really all that I have until tonight. I do have a couple of other things. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I've already asked the board superintendent. Jordan? Nothing today? Come on. Anything from the district staff? Dr. Hale?
Yep,
Anything
public
else?
hearing.
You've got section 15.
Yes. I'm going down to that section next. Julie, Steve, anything else? Okay, so that would bring us to 14. We don't know yet about our yellow cards for tonight. We will have at 6:15 this evening, section 15, public hearings. We will have 15.1 for the adoption of revised school board policy 01-06, personal appearance before the board, presented by our attorney.
Madam Chair, if it's okay, Mr. McInnes and Mr. Chambers, can we talk a little bit about item 15.1 real quick, about what's coming before the board tonight?
Certainly, Mr. Bryant, the red line of the proposed policy is on the agenda, and the changes there, one of them is a item that would say that in order to provide an opportunity for an expedited resolution of an issue, persons should contact the superintendent's office to discuss the matter in an attempt to come to resolution before coming to the board meeting. This is simply to give the superintendent an opportunity to work with someone to try to bring resolution to an issue.
And Mr. McInnes, I would just like to point out that very often those matters, the reason they are referred to the superintendent, and we all know this, but sometimes members of the public may not understand this, is that by law, the superintendent is designated to handle certain items that may be of importance to citizens or family or concerned folks. And I think it's important for folks to recognize that that's why we ask that to occur, is that because on some of these items, particularly, for example, like hiring or personnel matters. Those matters are specifically assigned to the superintendent. And so for us to even involve ourselves in those matters, there has been litigation in other school districts because school boards were inappropriately involved in those matters. So I just wanted to point out that I think, in my case, that's why this policy is written the way that it is because certain matters are under the direction of the superintendent. And I just wanted to point that out.
And one addition to the policy just above that, just confirms that this policy addresses individuals' presentation before the board. There's a statement being added to the policy which simply says that it doesn't prohibit the board from maintaining orderly conduct or proper decorum in your meetings. That ties back to your policy 01-05, which is in general about school board meetings, and there's a section of that policy that deals with conduct at meetings, and clearly by policy says that in addition to this policy on the presentations of individuals, the board can adopt protocols and guidelines for decorum in the meetings. And so I just want to mention that's why that's referenced there. It's a reference really back to your other existing policy. The next category, there used to be an entire section in the policy that was not really being used that often anymore, and it was for certain times when persons would take matters through the superintendent's office in order to get onto the board agenda. That's been being proposed to come out of the policy and just a suggestion that they meet with the superintendent, but it's not a mandatory requirement. The next section deals with if you will, a bifurcation of the 2 speaking times on your agenda. This simply clarifies that the first one will be for agenda items and that the second speaking time will be for all other matters that public speakers may want to bring forward. There is a proposed adjustment to the time for the first one from 4 minutes to 3. The second one, however, is at the same time. It's been 2 minutes since the board originally put that into your policy a number of years ago. We have a practice which is now just simply being referenced in the policy that persons addressing the board will fill out a speaker's card so that we do have a record of the speakers, and the chairman has that information to know who to call on and who is present for speaking. And then finally, there's a section that simply indicates that if there is a large number of speakers here on the same topic, the chairman may, it's not a mandatory, it's not required, but the chairman may encourage the groups to have someone speak for them, but that certainly doesn't mean that someone who is not part of a group or whatever cannot speak to the board on that topic. So that's what's in the proposed revisions to the policy.
So it's fair to say that with the exception of addressing agenda items and all, there is a topic on here tonight where a person can actually get 3 attempts to speak publicly on an item, correct, since there's a public hearing on it. So it's an agenda item, and then they can also come back to, so we're giving them opportunities to speak, but does, how do I want to say it? But we're not restricting as far as giving people an opportunity to speak before the board.
In fact, Mr. Bryant, what you mentioned is a very good point. At meetings in which the board has advertised public hearings, there are actually 3 separate times for the public to address the board. One will be on agenda items, and of course, the public hearing item is an agenda item, and then there'll be the public hearing where persons can speak on that particular matter, and then there'll be the general comments section on there. So in those meetings where there is a scheduled public hearing, there will be 3 different times for persons to address the board.
And real quick, in my position with the Florida School Board Association, I have an opportunity to speak with many school board members across the state. One thing that always has intrigued me is that a lot of school boards are kind of surprised that we have 2 workshops and 2 meetings every month, which a lot of them only have 1, and some don't even have workshops.
Correct.
So I feel like Okaloosa County, is there any data that shows other school boards, what their procedures are, what their school board meetings look like?
No, absolutely. And first, I want to say to the school board, I've had conversations with different folks about this item that's coming up tonight. One of the things that I've shared with each of them is the adjustments that's being made here in no way, shape, or form is being made to discourage folks from coming to speak with the school board. Rather, we encourage that. If someone wants to come share with the school board, whether it be at a meeting, whether it be one-on-one, whether it be through email, we're all open to that. So I just want to share that. Secondly, we did reach out to all 67 school districts across the state of Florida, and we received responses back from 65 of them. And I just want to give you just a little bit of data. First of all, in terms of the number of meetings that school districts have across the state, and that means school board meeting, workshop, okay? So 13 school districts just have one meeting a month. Many of those school districts where it's one meeting a month, they'll either say no workshop or they'll say workshop as needed. 36 school districts across the state of Florida have 2 meetings a month. 9 school districts across the state of Florida have 3 meetings a month. So 58 of the 67 school districts across the state have less meetings than we do. We are amongst 8, so 4 meetings a month. 8 school districts across the state have that, and then there's 1 school district that has 6 meetings a month. So only 1 of the 67 school districts across the state have more meetings than we do, and I think we pride ourselves on that. I think we want to be as accessible to the public as possible. But then you start looking at the number of public comment sections that are offered at each school board meeting. So one section, so 42 school districts out of 67 just have 1 opportunity to speak before the board. 19 school districts, to include us, Okaloosa, have 2 opportunities to speak before the board. And then 3 school districts have 3 opportunities. 1 school district has 4 opportunities. So there are 4 school districts out of 67 across the state who have more opportunities to speak than we do. Then you start looking at the times per speaker. 1 school district has 2 minutes. That's the amount of time that they have to speak before the board. 55 school districts have 3 minutes to speak before the board. So 55 school districts have 3 minutes to speak before the board. 5 school districts have 5 minutes to speak before the board. And when you break that down, those 5 school districts, the majority of them either do not have a workshop or it's workshop as needed. Our current school board is we have 4 minutes and 2 minutes, and then 2 districts have 3 minutes and 5 minutes. And if tonight you see fit to keep the 3 minutes and 2 minutes, I think the 3-minute piece, we're right there with 55 of the other school districts, and then 2 minutes at the end. What we also have, which other school districts don't necessarily have, is truly the citizens in our county have the opportunity to speak at workshops as well. So workshops and school board meetings, so that's 4 opportunities a month. So just given factual data, I appreciate Mary reached out to all 67 school districts. She was able to get this information back from 65 of them.
I think that's pretty
Mary,
awesome.
could you send that info, or somebody send that info to us, please?
I'll have it for you tonight.
Thank you.
And in my 40-year-plus career here, I can recall this very policy being revised and adopted several times, so it's not unusual to review this. In fact, we review all of our policies now in a rotational setting every 3 years. So this is not an outlier. This is something that boards do frequently.
Well, and I would just comment that my fellow board member, Dr. White here, he was the one that proposed us adding the second public comment that was voted unanimously by this, not this current board, but the previous board. So, and that we also did change the time previous to that too. So,
Any other comment?
I just want to say that I've many times have seen where an individual, a parent basically comes to the board to speak and maybe hasn't had the time to finish or whatever the situation may be, but if you watch Mr. Chambers, he will look at one of his members over here, and they know exactly what to do. They get up with their notepad and they go to the parent and they follow up with the information. And then I mean, we see that connection. So it's not like the 3 minutes, that's it, and we move on. I do. It's fun to kind of watch to see who you're going to give the eye to, and they quickly know to go and address. So those individuals, we do listen and follow through. So thank you, and thank you to the members that do go out and follow up with these parents and their concerns.
Anything else in that one? Then we will hear 15.2, public hearing for adoption of a revised school board policy 04-28, emergency operations, school safety and security, presented by Danny Dean.
Now, can we just
Comment?
quickly, that policy, I took a look at it, and those kinds of things that we're addressing in 15.2, 15.3, and 15.4 are established, as I recall, in statute. Is that right?
These are policies that are typically revised based upon statutory revisions and changes, and that's what Mr. Dean works to keep them current with.
Right.
Mhm.
So we're doing this because of some statutory requirement. This is not just something that the school district or the school board has generated.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other comment? 15.3 then would be public hearing for adoption of revised school board policy 04-33, violent crimes and/or possession of use of tobacco products, alcoholic beverages, drugs, weapons, or firearms, presented by Brian Humphrey, Specialist, Discipline and Athletics, and recommended by the superintendent for approval.
And then, Madam Chair, I
Okay.
would say this is one that is being revised based upon internal findings and the necessity to continually try to keep up with the items that are being brought into the schools that are, such as the vapes with
Mhm.
drugs and other things contained in them. And so this is a change being made, just trying to
Right.
continually be on top of that.
And I certainly hope that the public, parents all look at that one, because that has become increasingly a challenge in our classrooms, so.
Mhm.
Well, we're even doing, superintendent's
Yes.
talked about an anti-vaping
Yep.
Absolutely.
program and all of the above. Right.
Any other comment? All right, and then lastly, we will hear 15.4, public hearing for adoption of a revised school board policy 04-49, school threat assessment teams, presented by Danny Dean, Program Director, Safe Schools, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Any
And
comment?
just here again, if I remember correctly, this is something that's established in statute.
That's my understanding,
Mhm.
yes.
Mhm.
We'll want to take a look at that and make sure that's the case before tonight.
All right. Anything else? Anybody else? Right? Then at this point, it leads us to our adjournment. Thank you.
All right, good job. Good job.